SARC Talk. SARC is a nonprofit cancer research organization that develops and manages clinical research trials in pediatric and adult sarcomas. SARC Talk is a podcast to discuss activities of SARC, interview sarcoma research leaders, and review scientific initiatives in the sarcoma field.
Welcome to SARC Talk, episode 41. My name is Scott Okuno, a medical oncologist at Mayo Clinic and Chief Medical Officer of SARC. At SARC Talk, we interview interesting people who are connected to sarcoma, where we can all share and spread the knowledge about sarcoma. All our episodes are posted on our website, Spotify, YouTube, SARC channel, or wherever podcasts are available. Please subscribe and submit comments. Today, our guest is Kathrin Schuster. Kathrin is an executive director of the Sarcoma Patient Advocacy Global Network, or SPAGN. SPAGN is an international network of patient advocacy organizations working collaboratively together to improve the lives of people affected by sarcoma through collaboration, education, awareness, and advocacy. Today, we'll discuss this year's Sarcoma Awareness Month theme of July, which is the Challenge of Sarcoma, and explore how raising awareness can help improve the journey from diagnosis to cure. Welcome, Kathrin. I know that we're in different time zones. It's pretty far away from you, but thanks for joining us on SARC Talk.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Kathrin, you and I know each other. We've been visiting and, through various connections that we've had at multiple meetings, but maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what led you to become involved with your organization.
Yes, of course. So actually, it's a bit of a story of coincidence and also some personal background. So I'm the executive director, as you said. I don't have a background in science or medicine, or I'm not a patient myself. I don't even have a personal connection to sarcomas, but to cancer, obviously. So as I said, it's a bit of a personal story. My father was diagnosed with cancer some many years ago, and that experience just so impressive in a way for me, that feeling of helplessness. If you're something like that is thrown at you and you don't know how to handle it and what to do and who to ask and which questions to ask. So that was quite something that stuck with me. And I was just, doing my studies and communications. And after that experience, I decided to go into healthcare communications, which in the end, through coincidences, led me to patient advocacy. Which I'm very grateful and happy to be with, because I think in this space you can really make a meaningful difference for patients. Even though I don't have the personal connections to sarcoma, I think the situations patients are in with that diagnosis, that is something I can really relate to and want to change on, obviously.
Maybe you can share a little bit then, visiting with you and spending time with you, I would never have thought that you had no connection to sarcoma when we all started here. But it kind of highlights the importance of just, importance of patient care and advocacy for anybody undergoing a life-changing illness. I can see that when your organization and what you put forth. Maybe you can share kind of where you are located so people can understand the time zone differences, because I kind of just said that off the top, so where are you located?
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. I'm in Germany. I'm in the southern part of Germany, which is pretty hot at the moment. So the organization also is registered in Germany, and actually our SPAGN's roots are European. So we were founded some 17 years ago, 2009, as a European organization with 11 patient organizations coming together, 11 patient organizations all dedicated to sarcomas or GIST or desmoids. That was actually facilitated and helped with by Professor Jean-Yves Blay, who probably is very well known to you. So we came together and we decided that there are issues that need a strong patient voice across borders and things that just need addressing across borders. So the organization was registered, founded in Germany, which again is a coincidence. And we're still here and we've been growing a lot. So in those past 17 years, from 11 patient organizations, we're now up to 80 patient organizations, all around the globe. So from every continent. In the meantime, we've moved on from European to a global network, which is amazing seeing all those patient advocates around the globe fighting for one goal, but on the other hand, a lot of challenges as well for us as an organization. So yeah, that's who we are. We try to bring together the national or the patient organizations around the globe, all dedicated to sarcomas, to come together, to work together, to fight together for one common goal.
One thing is the expanse of your organization. As you said, you started with 11, you're up to 80 plus now. And as we know in sarcoma, there are probably 100 different histologies that are out there. Every organization is, in fact, all major organizations are represented by your group there. And I know you've worked hard to build the infrastructure to help support these 80 different groups acting as one voice. I know you've worked collaboratively with the Connective Tissue Oncology Society as well, and maybe you can kind of share how that evolved over time as well.
I think, to be honest, it was from the very beginning on that was kind of ingrained in our organization to work collaboratively. So we always knew that if we wanted to change the situation for sarcoma patients, we needed to come together, and that involves all stakeholders. So obviously the patients and patient advocates, but also clinicians, researchers, the medical or scientific societies, and also our industry partners. There is only this one opportunity. I think we have to really come together on that level and work together. And yes, as I said earlier, our founding of the organization was also supported by Jean-Yves Blay and other sarcoma experts in Europe back then. But we've also tried to establish the connections and the collaboration with everybody in that field. Obviously, everybody is a lot, but I think we've come a long way, and this is really the foundation of what we do. And in 2022, we were very happy and fortunate to officially start a collaboration with the Connective Tissue Oncology Society, which was a major step for us. I think, honestly, the two organizations complement each other in the perfect way. So CTOS is global, focused on sarcoma. So are we from the patient advocacy side. So this is really something we're really, really happy about, and hopefully we'll be able to build on in the future as we do already.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing great work, and your presence and support for collaboration is a model that, we're very fortunate to have a sarcoma big group kind of overseeing and supporting all the advocacy groups. And as you said, you're not supplanting their activities, you're just helping coordinate and help provide support, which is great. And that brings us to the month of July when we're recording
Yes.
here. And month of July is Sarcoma Awareness Month. And in the United States here, where I am in Minnesota, we actually have a certain day set aside, and I know that each organization does that as well. And maybe you can share a little bit of how July Sarcoma Awareness Month affects you and your organization, and why is it critical that we continue to remember not only July and a certain day in the year, but ongoing long term?
That's actually a really good point you're making there. So it's not just 1 month for sarcoma patients. Every day is Sarcoma Awareness Day in a way. But obviously it's having something that focuses on a certain period of time to raise awareness is, I think, more powerful. But maybe going back to the history of Sarcoma Awareness Month, we've only been doing a globally coordinated campaign for the past 3-4 years now. In the past, what we saw is a lot of different sarcoma awareness days, bone cancer awareness week, sarcoma awareness month, different time, different days. So we really try to bring that all together in this 1 month and bring the community together to raise awareness. And what we do is to bring together our patient advocates to discuss early on what the next theme of Sarcoma Awareness Month should be. So to make sure that it's relevant for hopefully most of our organizations to join in. And as I said earlier, we're trying to be the global voice of patient advocacy in sarcomas. And this is an opportunity to bring everybody together and to be really loud. And that's what we're trying to do. So for this year, Sarcoma Awareness Month theme is a pretty broad one, because we had a lot of discussions with a lot of topics that are relevant, ranging from the rarity and heterogeneity of the disease and getting an accurate and and early diagnosis to access to care, to specialized care, to research, to clinical trials. So pretty broad. So we kind of summarized all that under the heading of Challenges of Sarcoma. So we'll be talking about all those topics from week to week, a changing topic. But we're not saying, okay, those are the challenges, we are doomed. So what we're trying to do is to bring everybody together then to say, look, this is rare. This has a lot of challenges, but we can do it together. We can come together and make sure that everybody who's getting diagnosed with sarcoma doesn't feel so alone and so isolated, because that is really something we see across all countries, across all sarcoma patients, that feeling of loneliness. And I'm the only one. There is no one else who's facing this. That's not true. If we look on a global scale, we can come together and we can show that nobody's alone with sarcoma.
Just to follow up on that, I love the global perspective that, hey, let's concentrate our efforts on the main theme this year of the challenges of sarcoma. And as you highlight, it's not to make it sound depressing, but to really be uplifting. And as you are promoting the theme to your organizations globally, the challenges of sarcoma, it affects a lot of people. And you've used the word not alone, that we're there to support you. Can you share kind of your thoughts on what does it really mean from a patient, caregiver, and healthcare professionals? What makes sarcoma different in the treatment approaches, or maybe not so different from the treatment approaches and perspectives as we put together the challenges of sarcoma? Because we could swap out the challenges of breast cancer or swap out the challenges of colon cancer. So, we think we're in a very special field, and I know we are, but I just want to make sure, sarcoma is a really rare disease, and having a global impact and to allow what you said, that you're not alone, is important. So maybe your thoughts on that.
I think you mean like why sarcoma so special?
Yeah. And why sarcoma is special? Yeah. For the patient, caregiver, and healthcare professionals. Yeah.
I think really the main thing is the rarity of the disease and heterogeneity. So when you get diagnosed with a common cancer, usually there is something established in a way that, is there a specialist center? Is there a referral pathway? Those are things that we don't commonly see in sarcomas. We even have trouble getting a timely diagnosis and an accurate one. So the challenges, I think, to compare to common cancers is just really that first step, that initial step. I mean, it's so rare that usually the primary care physicians that probably are the first people to see a potential sarcoma patient maybe never have seen something like that. And that makes it so difficult to diagnose. The symptoms are so diverse. There is not this one symptom that could tell you this is a sarcoma. And I might be talking about this later, but we've seen in our survey that we did in 2024, we asked about symptoms. I frankly have to say I was shocked to see the diversity of symptoms that patients reported. I mean, obviously there's pain, there is that lump or swelling or maybe fatigue, the more typical ones, but then there is double vision, bleeding, coughing, abdominal pain. It's so random. It's really difficult to say that's a sarcoma. And I think that's what probably is the biggest differentiation between common cancers and sarcomas. But if you take that further, once people have been diagnosed, so who's taking care of those patients? We are in a situation where we need a multidisciplinary team. We need more than one expertise to decide on what's the best treatment strategy. What do you do with the patients? And that's where it gets really tricky when it becomes global, because you're in the US, I'm in Germany. So I think we're in a pretty good position here. But when you look at other parts of the world, I had a patient advocate from South Africa. When we talked about this, she said, honestly, Kathrin, we don't even have enough regular oncologists to take care of our cancer patients. So that's where it gets really tricky when you're a global organization, that the challenges are really, really difficult. And then, clinical trials, next topic, US, Europe, pretty good. But even if you look at Eastern Europe, no clinical trials for sarcoma patients, no big interest from big pharma, to go into research. All those things. You asked me a simple question. This is a long answer. I'm sorry for that, but it's a lot of challenges that make sarcoma unique, I think.
I think, when you say the challenges of sarcoma, you highlighted 100%. If you've seen one sarcoma, you've seen one sarcoma, because it's not the same. And as a global organization, you're starting to realize that. And I think that's why it's important to say that there are other people in the global world that have what you have, but each individual person might not know those people. And that's where you're connecting. As a caregiver, you're trying to support. It's very unique caring for a sarcoma patient. And then, as you said, in our world in healthcare, is access to specialists, access to clinical trials is a challenge. And you've highlighted that. And you also shared that you did a survey, and maybe you can share a little bit with our audience, kind of the survey that you did globally to understand a little bit more about this. And what made you decide to pull this research together?
I'm happy to share that because I think that was a pretty unique experience, definitely. So I think that the discussion about the topic of diagnosis in sarcoma was a long one, over probably 2, 3, maybe even more years within the board of directors, that this is really something that could change lives if the diagnosis would be earlier or more accurate. That obviously is an assumption. That's not something we can prove, but that kind of triggered the idea of, let's just ask the patients, because those are the ones who can tell what really happened before they got their diagnosis. And obviously there are a lot of anecdotal reportings from patients and patient advocates waiting long times for their diagnosis, getting re-diagnosed multiple times, sometimes even without being told about it. So there is a lot of discussion and obviously questions about this topic. So we said, okay, we're going to ask the patients and their caregivers about their experience to getting the diagnosis. So we came up with a survey. I think we had like 35 questions in the end, the main points being the time to diagnosis and the frequency of misdiagnosis. We translated all those questions. We made them available online. So hopefully a lot of people did have access. Obviously, we couldn't reach everyone. And we asked about obviously demographics, tumor characteristics, and then some additional questions on their path to diagnosis. As I said, misdiagnosis and time to diagnosis, but also, for example, symptoms or the number of doctors consulted before they got their diagnosis, the type of doctors consulted, whether or not they had been tested. So a lot of data there. And we just recently published on factors associated with the time to diagnosis earlier this year, in April this year. And that was quite eye-opening in some respects, I have to say. So we had approximately 1,800 patients and caregivers answering this survey from a total of 49 countries. So I think that alone shows that there is a need to talk about this, that there is a need for patients to share what they experience. So we've been pretty happy with the participation and the willingness of our patients to be part of this discussion. And regarding our findings, I think what was most striking is that we didn't find any factors that would lead to prolonged time to diagnosis associated to the tumor. So not the subtype, not the stage of diagnosis, not the age of the participants. The only thing from that spectrum was actually, and I personally found this quite shocking, is that women get their diagnosis quite a lot later than males. So especially in the second part of the diagnosis journey. So we split up. So we asked about the what we call the patient part, from the onset of symptoms to seeing a healthcare professional for the first time. And then the second part, the care interval, from seeing the doctor to getting your current diagnosis. And especially in the second part, it took women a lot longer than men to get a diagnosis. So I don't have the answers to that. It's all speculation, but that's what the data tell us. And the other thing we found is it's not really the tumor or who you are. It's also very related to the barriers you face in the healthcare system. So we asked about, did you experience any barriers in, for example, delays or misdiagnosis, awareness from the doctor's part, awareness from the patient part, having, for example, trouble finding a healthcare expert with experience in sarcoma, or financial burdens. And those were the things that really added to a prolonged time to diagnosis in our findings. So the more barriers patients reported, the longer it took them to get a diagnosis. So I think there is a potential to look at how our healthcare systems work, where there are opportunities to change in order to at least speed up the process of getting a diagnosis and a correct diagnosis.
Well, first of all, we applaud you for your efforts to pull this together. And you said something that clued me in a little bit, is that you and the board of directors spent several years mulling this over before even launching this research program here. And maybe you can share how you and your organization work with your board of directors to help shape and direct, because that's an important aspect of your growth and development too, as an organization. Yeah.
That's true. If you put it that way, it sounds awful. But it's actually, I mean, we're talking about a huge network for a rare disease, but actually we're very small or lean organization. So there's a board of directors. We have 7 elected board members and at the moment, another 5 appointed board members. So there are 12 people working on the board. They are all patients or caregivers or longstanding patient advocates. They all have an organization behind them, so a national organization. So they are active as patient advocates on a national level, and they contribute their knowledge and their expertise to our international work. But they're all volunteers, so this is not something that's paid, which obviously then restricts time and capacities from the board. And then there is a very small team. So I'm 1/4. So there are actually just 4 people working on everything. So when you say we've been talking about this for 2 to 3 years, it's been a discussion that this is a topic, but we didn't really find a way to address this. And I think at one point we just made the decision, we got to go for that. We got to try that. Even if we make mistakes, even if there is something we could have done better in retrospective, we just did it. And I think it was a good thing to do it. In retrospect, obviously, there's always something you would change. There's always something you could do better. But I think those data, and there's still so much in there that is not in the publication, and we'll hopefully be able to share that in the near future. There is so much meaningful information in there. So it definitely was worth the effort and also the discussion beforehand, because sometimes you need to have that discussion to come to that decision.
Well, I'm a person very similar to what you guys think, is you need time to let it mature, develop, and then eventually you got to execute and just do it. And as you said, this is a rich amount of data. You published some of the information already. Was there anything in the data that really surprised you? You kind of highlighted, women take longer to get to the doctor, and then once they get to the healthcare provider, it's even longer than men. But was there anything else specific that kind of got your eye and caught your thinking about the data?
So what I've shared earlier, I would have assumed that the tumor type or the stage of disease or the primary tumor location would make a difference in the time to diagnosis. But that wasn't the case. What we saw also, and that was really, really surprising, but definitely something to discuss, is that we saw a shorter period of time to get to a diagnosis in lower income countries, which is from where I'm standing is counterintuitive. I thought it would have been the other way around. But when I said this is a discussion to be had, is that we need to look at the sample sizes. Of course, we have the respondents mostly came from high income countries or middle to high income countries. We only have a small number of patients and caregivers who answered the questions coming from lower income countries. So there is a lot of bias in that. But nevertheless, it was an interesting exercise and interesting to see. And maybe there is some truth in there that we need to explore a little more. I would assume that patients in those countries, either they're very far advanced to get then to a hospital which has some expertise in sarcomas, or maybe they have the financial means to do that, because that plays a role. So, but that's personal assumptions. That's not something that we can see in the data, but that was quite interesting to see and maybe to explore a little further.
Absolutely. And one of the advantages that you have is you're a global organization. You get to see the global effect of multiple healthcare systems that supposedly work efficiently and maybe are barriers. And you kind of highlighted that as well. But there are some common themes that you have seen across your data sets that maybe are consistent no matter where you're from economically, what healthcare system you have. And I think maybe you can share a little bit with the group, like what are common themes that you see across the sarcoma landscape despite country and all those activities?
I think what we did definitely see, and that can be proven by the data, is that time to diagnosis still is long. So we came up with a median of 92 days over the whole data set, which doesn't seem too long, but still it's 3 months. And then 3 months that I think for a patient can make quite the difference. And if you look at the ranges, what patients reported, this is just a median, but we've seen reports from patients with months and years of waiting till they get diagnosis. So that is really something we've seen across all data that was put in. And then the frequency of misdiagnosis. So on average, we had 23% of changed diagnosis, but that actually ranges from country to country. That's not something we compare it on a statistical basis. So I must be careful to how to phrase that. So we have a very strict statistician who reminded me, be careful of what you say. But it was interesting to see that, it's like 23%. We have one country which raises up to 45% of change diagnosis. Again, the case numbers range a lot, so must be careful, but still it's very, very interesting to see. But I think overall you can say misdiagnosis is still very frequent, and I think it aligns with the data that has been published before in misdiagnosis in sarcoma.
Kathrin, you bring up a point that is important for those that are listening. If you're a patient or a patient advocacy person or family member, even a healthcare professional that might be listening, says you need an accurate diagnosis. And since it's so rare, it's important. And, part of when we start to look at the term misdiagnosis, it still might be a sarcoma. It still might be a certain type of sarcoma, but they might change the nomenclature a little bit. That probably doesn't impact patient care. However, in that 23+%, there are ones that will impact patient care decisions, treatment decision, prognosis. So part of that, as you said, is statistically to start to tease out what are really the wrong diagnosis, the practice implication ones. And I think that's data that we all want to make sure that we have the right diagnosis and we're going to treat it the right way. So as you see this data, and it's the month of July, we're pulling all the world's resources together collaboratively. Kind of what are the marching orders would you recommend for us that are seeing patients with sarcoma to help close the gap? Because it sounds like time to diagnosis is a common theme. Yes, misdiagnosis is another one, but maybe that closing the gap. What are some of the efforts that you think globally that we could be doing?
I guess a lot of answers lie in raising awareness for sarcomas, because it's all along the way, I guess, from diagnosis to referral, and also raising awareness with maybe regulators and also pharma companies to take a look at sarcoma. So I think that's a bit of an overarching theme in how do we improve the situation for sarcoma patients. I mean, there are obviously things that need to be done on a national level, like referral pathways or specialist centers. We can give guidelines what we as a global patient community want to see, but in the end, implementation is on a national level. That's not something we can do, but we can say this is important, and we can say that together, and we can say it loud. That's what Sarcoma Awareness Month is for, and that's why we invite everybody to join this discussion and to make our voices heard as a global overarching community. It's not just us patient community, it's also you. Talk about your experience, talk about your challenges from healthcare side, and I think that this whole picture then hopefully will make a change in the end.
No, I like your vision there and speaking as one voice to get the word out. And, at SARC, we are working hard. Other organizations as well from, that deal with sarcoma is to get trials, to get drugs, to get industry willing to pursue this in sarcomas when it's 1% of all cancers is our mission and vision. So we'll continue to work on that, and getting right information to patients is also key. And I know part of your organization is support the 80 plus other organizations that have more histology specific there, but maybe from a patient perspective, can you kind of say this, how do you, if someone says, hey, I want to get information about sarcoma, how do you tell patients to approach this? Because there's so much information out there, some good, some not, and maybe kind of your thoughts from yourself and your organization.
I guess that's honestly something that we need to address a little more in the future, because the landscape has changed so much. So previously, say 15 years back, you would just put the information on your website, and it would be okay to do that. But now, and you've mentioned the subtype specific organizations, there are so many subtypes, there is so much more need for information. And then there is AI. So I think that is going to be a big challenge for us that we still need to address also together with our organizations, because a lot of patients will not Google anymore. They will ask ChatGPT. And I think there is both a threat, but also an opportunity for us to make sure that accurate information is given to the patients here. But frankly, that's something we need to look at in the future. Maybe also together with you to make sure that we do the same and come up with the right answers for our patients, and maybe also some guidance on where to turn to, which resources to address, to kind of guide the patients where to go.
We're fortunate that a lot of organization, ASCO, ESMO, other advocacy organization come up with position papers, but those are really helpful. But as you said, there are 90 or let's say 100 different histologies that how to develop guidelines, and the expertise, I think AI, and I think learning how to accept AI and what it generates and its validity, I think is an opportunity for all of us. And I think that will be the next step, as you said.
But maybe there's one other thing, if I might mention that, because you mentioned earlier that we know each other from different initiatives, and maybe that's something to just highlight here. Obviously, there are guidelines addressing the big group of soft tissue sarcomas or bone sarcomas, or just as a bit of a separate one. But when it comes to guidelines for subtype specific for specific subtypes, then it gets really tricky, because there is not a lot of evidence, there is not a lot of, sometimes even knowledge, there are not a lot of patients. So in one of the initiatives we did together, or currently doing together, is the LMS Research Roundtable, which resulted now in a consensus meeting last year. We're in publication, hopefully, to have some guidelines mainly aimed at non-experts, really, the doctors that see leiomyosarcomas and don't know what to do with them. And we have a lot of countries where this is the case, where there are no specialist center. And this is also a way of helping patients in a two-step way, providing the healthcare specialists with information that is vetted, that is correct, that is current, to help them treat patients in a more expert way, in a way. So I'm really thankful for that collaboration between patient advocates and you as experts.
Well, that's how you and us got started many, many years ago, because
Yes.
we're trying to promote leiomyosarcoma, and then we had to stop and think, you have 99 other histologies you got to support as well. And we were quite fortunate and blessed to have you and your team help build that pre-ESMO in Berlin there, a great meeting, consensus building meeting. And hopefully out of that, we will develop a consensus paper. Well, it's been written already. We're just working through the details
Yes.
on that. And I think it will help our patients, and not only our patients, but our caregivers and healthcare providers that might not have the big group behind them to kind of share the best practices. And I know you are working with other histology specific groups to help build that out. And with the help of Bernd Casper and the team, you guys got the model and you did it with desmoid. Now we're doing it with LMS. So hopefully there's enough bandwidth to do more and more. We got 98 more to go or whatever. So we go from there.
Yeah, still a lot, but it's always a step by step. You cannot do everything at the same time. So we gotta, start somewhere.
As we, think about, July, listeners are going to hear this during July, and they're going to hear the Challenges of Sarcoma is the theme this year. And maybe you can share with those that are listening, what are some of the things that they can do to help participate in this activity of Sarcoma Awareness Month? I know our logo is a sunflower yellow, and I see you're wearing yellow. I should have worn yellow today too. I should have done.
I actually have a sunflower here. So
Yeah, there it is. Flower here. I lost my sunflower here. It's somewhere here, but to your point, it is important to promote ribbons. It is important to promote sunflowers. But are there some other things above and beyond that you are recommending for your groups to do this month?
Well, I think really join the conversation, share your experience, be loud. I mean, this is, we're a global organization, so this is mainly an online campaign, but we have a lot of tools that can be easily used. So we have a lot of graphics and posts that can be adjusted to whatever you want to share. And I'm so happy to see that some of our graphics have been translated in so many different languages, like ranging from French to Spanish to Portuguese to Swahili to Ukrainian to Greek, which is amazing. So I think that's a really wonderful way to reach patients out there and help them, navigate their journey a little better or a little more, less alone, I guess. But so everybody can contribute. Just make sure that you do be loud and make our voices heard. That there will be people who have not heard of sarcoma before, and hopefully those are the ones who can change the lives for individual sarcoma patients.
Well, I've heard loud and clear, be loud. And from us in Minnesota, we're kind of this reserved group of people here in Minnesota here, but yeah, we have to be loud and to speak the voice, because without it, we're silent, and we got to speak the voice. Kathrin, you've done a great job supporting, advocating, pulling together your organization and the 80 other organizations as you go along. And as we kind of end today here, is we always like to say is, some special thought, but I'll put you on the spot, even though I didn't share this with you earlier, is to say that if you had a billboard, and this is July, a billboard is kind of a one saying, what would the one saying that you would want us to remember today for July Sarcoma Awareness Month, the Challenge of Sarcoma? But what would your tagline be in your billboard?
I get the first thing that comes to mind, and that's not thought through, obviously, but it's see us, be aware of us. So I guess that's, it's something that the patients frequently share. They feel like invisible. So it's, I guess, this, yes, see us. I don't know.
Well,
It's probably not the right way to say it in English, but I hope you you
it
understand what I mean.
actually, oh my gosh, it's spot on because part of our other SARC Talk that Daphne is doing is the patient voice, hear us. We're
Hmm.
not
Oh,
invisible. So it actually fits so
wow.
appropriately in our thing here. And you've said a couple times, this is silent, you're alone. Hey, see us, hear us, be loud. And I think that's the message that we want today for Sarcoma Month. Go ahead, Kathrin.
I just coming to an end. You said earlier you've done a great job. So obviously this is not me, and it's not just the board of directors. It's the whole community. It's everybody contributing. That includes, again, you guys from the research and the clinical part and the industry. So everybody, thank you for everything we've achieved so far. It's never a one-person game. It's always coming together and being stronger together. So a huge thank you out in this community for working alongside and together.
Thank you for listening to SARC Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about SARC, visit us at sarctrials.org. If you have questions or would like to suggest a topic, email us at sarctalk@sarctrials.org. SARC Talk is made possible through the generous support of Surier Pharmaceuticals. Together, we can find a cure for all forms of sarcoma.